Welcome to Ex Machina. Join us as we explore the mysteries of this world. Cryptids, monsters, macabre tales, and horror stories abound. Could they be true? Are monsters real? Good evening, folks, and thank you for joining us on another edition of Ex Machina. Joining me in the house tonight is Robbie Rip Rains from South Carolina, Steve Wildman Monrodas from across town from me, Marianne and Marty the NonnaBoss is here tonight. We're going to be talking about the Ozarks Mountain Bigfoot Conference. It's going to be a fantastic night. Y'all, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Oh, thanks for having us.
You guys having a heat wave down your way? Because it's been pretty damn hot around here.
Oh, yeah. Big time. It's exhausting, the heat. Like, it's just, you don't want to go you know what I mean? You don't want to go anywhere. You don't want to do anything. You want to just chill with one of those Mr. fans.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's been a hot minute. How have y'all been?
Been good. Boys, holy crap. Look at the super chat we just got.
Oh, you ain't even worth that much. You are awesome.
Holy
Thank you, Blue Devil 23.
That is awesome.
They did some channel memberships last time too. Remember?
Mm-hmm. Sure did.
Blue Devil, you rock.
Hell yeah! Thank you so much. Well, you know, Marty's an old friend of the show. She's been on a few times, and we've been missing her, and I'm glad she's back. But Marianne's new to the show, and she's here to tell us about the Ozarks Mountain Bigfoot Conference. Yeah. This is the third year for the show. If you haven't had a chance to book your your tickets yet, you should probably jump on there. The link is in the description for the show. And if Noah will grab that and put it in chat, that would be appreciate. You can click on the Eventbrite link and purchase tickets directly to the show. And it's going to be a good time. There's a pretty impressive list of speakers. Some of them you've seen here on the show, some you may not have known yet, but it's going to be a heck of a good time. So Marianne, why don't you tell us a little bit about the show, a little bit about the history of the show, and who we're going to be having there at it this year.
Well, I can do that. So like you said, it's the third annual, and we've moved venues this year. We're going to be in Springfield at the Relics Event Center. And the speakers this year, we have our local speaker, Shane Carpenter. He's going to be in there bringing his cast and, updating us on the 400 and everything they're doing. And then we have Richard Stewart Taylor, who's going to be there, as he's a gentleman from Texas, down around the Dallas area. He goes out on some expeditions with us and has some drone footage. Just a wonderful gentleman. He's going to be doing some speaking. Then we also have Jason Kinsey. He is a filmmaker from British Columbia. And him and his film crew are going to be here, and they're going to be filming not only the conference, but the campout afterwards. And then we have Brian Sharp King off Sasquatch Odyssey, that podcast.
I know Brian, great guy.
He's a great guy. He's coming in. He's going to speak. He's also going to camp out with us. And then his buddy Wayne off of that Bigfoot podcast and Paranormal Odyssey. Wayne's going to be at the conference. Wayne is going to be speaking at the campout. And Wayne's also going to be at the campout. And we're doing things a little bit different this year. The campout is going to be after the conference. because we did it last year before, and then we came back and camped out that night, and we ended up having the perfect storm. We had one walk through camp, and I slept through it all. I was exhausted. So I'm getting the conference out of the way this year. It's going to be the first thing that we do. And then we're going back to the private property, and we're going to be there until Wednesday morning. So I still have some spots open for that. If people are interested, they can reach out to me, because we do still have a few spots open for the camp out itself.
I haven't had a chance to pick up a table yet, but I'm wanting
We've
to.
got you on the list.
I just haven't had the money to get one yet. Roxanne had a question for you. She says, I paid for my ticket online, made an opt to my phone. How will that work to get in?
We have a list of everyone that has bought tickets. There'll be, and when you come to the door, you just, give us your name and you'll be able to get in, because we've got a list of that. I'll have it printed out and at the door.
And for those of you who are interested in coming to the camp out, let me tell you, it's a little bit more than just a camp out. I mean, you just got to figure, like, there's just an entire huge, gigantic open field. And in the center is the cook's tent. These ladies and gentlemen cook their tails off to give us 2 meals a day. That's included with the price of the expedition. So they're going to feed us. They're going to, trust me, it's like, fireside chats every night. I mean, some expeditions at night that we're going to try and get to do this time around, because we got rained out last time.
Yes.
But
yes.
It's going to be a lot.
And you get this one-on-one time with the speakers out there, because all of them are going to camp with us. Oh, and I forgot, Robert Kreider. Gosh, can't forget him. He's coming to speak, and will also be camping out with us. So anybody that camps out with us gets, they get their in the price of the camp out tickets. You get your conference, and then you get to go camp out in the woods with all these people that you can pick their brains for days. Yes. And this is private property. This gentleman has had all kinds of activity. So when we went last year, a couple of days before we got there, because they homestead and they're on solar. I mean, they're just off grid, right? The gentleman that owns the property had gone to the store. His son asked him to pick up 2 flats of eggs. So, the flat of eggs, you have to use 2 hands to pick those things up, right? Okay. So he got 2 of those for his son. Son said, Dad's home. Son's like, just put them on my deck. I'm busy. I'll take them in the house when I go in. Well, he forgot them. Got up the next morning. Top flat of eggs is completely gone. Not broken, not destroyed, not in the yard, gone. The other one was not bothered. So they didn't tell us this. Day or 2 before we were done camping out, it turned up in the neighbor's yard, which is, I don't know, 1/4 of a mile down the road. 1 row of eggs, unbroken, untouched, in the yard. Now, coons will make a mess. Anything like that is going to just eat those eggs on the spot, make a big mess. Something with hands carried that off.
Oh, absolutely. But there's no way, if anything tried to pick it up with its mouth or anything like that, would have dumped eggs everywhere.
Exactly. But yeah, so when this gentleman bought this property, I think 5 or 6 years ago, I'm not for sure on that. The first things that they started happening was they would have rocks thrown on the roof of the metal building at night. They've seen things, they've heard things. Now in this area, they're pretty quiet. They're not real vocal, but they'll come in, check things out. He's got some metal equipment outside. They like to bang on that at night. We've heard him do that. He contacted me the other day, and he was washing his car in the creek a couple of weeks ago, middle of the day. His son's gone. He's the only one at home. Neighbors are, far and few between in this area. He said he's out there washing the car, and he was out in the middle of the creek, splash, a big old rock was thrown in the middle of the creek at him. So they're out there.
Mm-hmm.
There's been some things happen in that area.
Yep.
Now, without giving it away, what part of Missouri is that in?
It is in the southeast part of Missouri.
Okay. Is that in the Mark Twain, or is it?
It's actually not in the Mark Twain. I mean, it's close. It's really close, but it's private.
A lot of activity in the Mark Twain.
Yes. There's a lot there. I've had some other, I know there's some other active areas not far from him. So it's probably the same bunch just moving around in that area.
Now we've long kind of postulated that while not being migratory per se, that they operate in a range much like a black bear or a mountain lion. Hell, a mountain lion has a 200-mile range, and that's for an animal much smaller than that. So a family group of Bigfoot would probably have a very large range.
Well, and as big as they, are reported to be, they have to be able to cover a lot of ground at night if they want to,
and that's we talked about that. If a clan or family group, whatever you want to call them, 10, 15 of them, even let's just say 5 of them, if they're that big, how quick would they clean an area out if they stayed in one central area for more than 2 or 3 weeks?
Yeah. I think they're constantly moving with that, with whatever is coming into season in the area. I think they're constantly moving with it, especially like in the summertime, springtime, you're getting like strawberries, things like that, and get into the middle of the summer, it's blackberries, raspberries, gooseberries, things like that. You move into the fall and you've got the apples and pears and things like that are becoming, and even the pawpaws, have all ripened up. So I think they are constantly moving in their area wherever the food supply is at.
Well, and that's something that DA and I kind of talked about, and Steve too, and Noah. We're all kind of like, every time we've been to Joe Bald which we'd always been in the fall, we never really kind of put this together. But when we was down there last time, we got out and it was just like, like a normal place.
Wasn't anything odd about it at all?
Cicadas, it was just like a normal place. But Combs Ferry was like Joe Bald was, creepy. Just like stepping into a vacuum. Like it got with me and you down in when we were in Florida, Marty. When we heard that growl, everything just got really quiet and really creepy. That's the way Joe Bald was every other time we've been there, and it was just like. But then this time it was just like a normal place. But you go 10 miles across the lake into Combs Ferry, and it's just like. So we kind of got that. That's where we kind of just started. Or not building, but keeping on with our theory of maybe they move around, and this just wasn't the time that
they would have to. If you had any large carnivore, if it stayed, let's say you took a grizzly bear, and we know grizzly bears are carnivores, and you put it in 100 acres area, within 6 months, there's not going to be anything left for it to eat. It's got to have. Continue to be able to forage, to be able to have something to eat. But once it's eaten everything that's edible, it's going to take a while to replenish, and that bear is going to starve. It's going to have to move.
Yeah, I mean, just on principle they would have to, but I think that's just like innately what they do is move around.
I think too that they live closer sometimes than you think to populated areas. And I think they take advantage of that, of raiding the trash bins. And
I just had a report from somebody I know just outside of Springfield, between Springfield and Republic, there's an apartment complex. And she said she took her dog out at about 2 o'clock in the morning here just about a week ago and got growled at from the trash cans behind the apartment complex.
Yeah. I know a couple of places south of me where they've had them jump out of the dumpster when they went to throw the trash out really early in the morning, and they said they thought it was a younger one because it was smaller,
Let me strengthen that for you, Marianne. I don't know if you know my story, but Marty and Steven and DA, most people in the chat know my story. My first encounter was just across the road from where I live right now in the early 1980s, 82, 83, somewhere around in there. Well, was it last show, DA, where somebody popped up Dacresville, and I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. Is that so? Long story short, and I ain't even got a chance to talk to DA about this or Steve. Got to talking to the guy. He not anymore, but he just lived right up the road from me. As early as last year, he was hit when he would go outside at night, and he lives right next to or right across the road from a Spink station, or lived rather. And there was one of the I don't know if y'all have got the clock, but it's just a normal franchise restaurant around here. There's one of those. There's a Spinks across the road from that, and there's a Dollar General. All three of those places have had dumpsters moved around. This is right in the area where I had that sighting. So I'm just thinking could be the same family group, and they just move around.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because I got to looking into it after me and him talk, and although this area has built up, and there's a lot of houses now around the main highway, on that side of the road that I had the sighting on, where my grandfather owned all that land, I thought, there's trailer parks off 183 now, which is all that. But I got to looking at the map, and there's actually still a whole lot of forest and wooded area in that area that is still nobody's touched. Still one family owns all that. So, but that dumpster is right off a main highway. I mean, a main highway. Because that restaurant, he said he's walked over and seen that thing turn sideways. And it's not a small dumpster. It's one of those big,
Right.
10 and a half foot
Mm-hmm.
long.
Right down here at Miami, Oklahoma, just down the road from us, is one of there's a Native American casino down there. And if it's the one I believe it is just off of I-44, and they've captured movement they've captured Bigfoot at their dumpsters, but they won't share the video because the tribe doesn't want it out.
Is that the one that they refer to as Chicken Man?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. I think
the tribe will not share the video.
Wasn't there a couple of BFRO members that went down there and saw that?
Supposedly, I don't know. I haven't spoken to anybody that's actually seen the video.
Yeah.
But I've talked to a couple people down there in the Cherokee Nation. And like, yes, the video exists. It just they won't show it to outsiders.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I've heard that. Well, I know.
So I just have a quick question, Robbie. Are you guys in the area where you said it's near the highway? I mean, have you had any reports?
Well,
I mean, like highway crossings or anything like that?
I haven't heard of anything, but I started talking to my dad about it. And, I've told you this plenty of times, that my stepdad's the only one in the family that really believes me, or has, other than my kids. So I got to talking to him about it after I talked to this guy. And he was like, you know what? I've been out hunting, because he hunted in between his house and my house. We've just let it grow up. And, Dad's getting on up, and he can't drive 3 or 4 or 5 hours anymore like he used to go hunt. So he just kind of hunts in between our houses. We've let the pines grow up. He said there's been a lot of times when he's been out hunting and he's heard stuff, or he's heard dogs all over the neighborhood just going nuts. A couple of his buildings have been broke into, and I went up there and looked. It does not look like what a human would do to break into a building. Now, my uncle says, oh, we got hogs in there that are doing that. But there's hogs make – you can tell where a hog's been. That's just if you've been around and you've seen them, you know what hogs do. And behind his building didn't look like anything that a hog had done.
There was a fellow over in Taney County I was talking to not too long ago, kept having his horse feed come up missing from his barn. So he started padlocking it. And he went out the next day, and the barn had been broken into, and more horse feed was gone. And when he got to looking at the door, the damage was done at almost 10 feet off the ground at the top of the door. The top of the door had been grabbed and pulled out and broke the lock off.
Wow. That is
I'm like,
wild.
yeah, that's not normal.
Nah.
Definitely not normal.
So, I started talking to Johnny, my co-host, and we're going to start trying to look into it more. My dad's going to go talk to he knows the people who still own that land on the other side. He's going to go talk to him and see if he would mind if nothing else, if just me and my dad walked in there and walked around, took a look, see what we could find out. I'm not sure what the clock or Spinks, I don't know how they would do if I go in and ask, hey, can I see your camera footage? Who knows?
Hi, if you don't mind, are
Yeah.
you good with me looking at your phone?
So,
You got an honest face, Robbie. That's okay. You'll get away with it. Don't worry.
oh yeah, I'm sure I'll get away with it. I've got an honest face. Honestly, I don't believe you just asked me that.
Well, I mean, I've gotten away with getting your hats a couple times. So
Okay. Yeah, me and this joker right here, I'm sitting there and I kept looking at the picture he put up, and I'm like, what about that? Why is that something about that picture just? And I got looking, and I kept looking, and finally, the day it hit me, I said, "That's my damn hat she's got."
Yeah, but I got DA too, though. I got DA too.
Yeah,
I got a picture with his hat.
I told him, he said, "I figured you'd catch it quicker than that." I said, "Yeah, yeah, laugh it up, Spencer." Awesome.
I just want to give everybody a shout out that's like saying hi to us ladies. Thank you guys for being here tonight. And I saw Gary was in here, and Dina, and I saw Lenny, and I saw Mogs, and thanks for being here for us and showing up. And Miss Cindy Bailey, one of our cooks. She's one of our amazing cooks. Yes.
Yeah.
Lots of bacon gonna be here at this conference. Lots of shenanigans going on, and bacon and more bacon. So if you're a bacon lover, buy some tickets to the expedition portion of the conference.
Have me a bacon.
And to answer General's question, that land is not in my grandfather or not in my family anymore. It's already been sold off. The land I'm talking about, there's another family that owns that. My dad knows them. He's going to go talk to them. So that it's not family land anymore.
But, I mean, when we think about, though, those kinds of reports about the dumpsters, and like Marianne was talking about, only one tray of eggs, I mean, they could have taken all the eggs, but they didn't. They only took one tray, but I mean, I definitely believe that they go in some sort of a circle that they have around a specific area. And I think that's why they probably need their family groups to be a little on the smaller side to be able to keep that, sustainability. But creatures of habit and opportunists for sure.
Well, and here again, just like we talk about, look in nature. There are, when you go and look at pods of orcas, depending on where they're at, you might have a pod that's 15, 20 orcas. But then you can have super pods that are upwards of 200 to 300 orcas. But they're living in places where food is really abundant. They eat stuff like, fish and the stuff that's there. But you get the smaller ones that eat seals where they have to hunt and catch, or even the smaller ones that really are particularly looking for like great white shark livers, smaller because their diet is pickier. It's got to be the same way for other animals too. If you're a particular area that you live in is a lot smaller or a lot, just like we talk about up north, the food's a lot less, on hand up there. That's probably why they're bigger and meaner and eat mostly meat up there because, food's just hard to find up there.
Well, that's a great example, like you were saying, is right there in nature. There are 19 subspecies of black bear.
Wow. I didn't know that.
I just learned that fairly recently. But but they can all interbreed. They're all black bears, but they are uniquely different subspecies of black bear.
Interesting.
So, if we get that much diversity just among black bears in North America, what other animal species have we got that kind of diversity among?
Well, I know last year on the expedition, it was very, and I got Michelle's entire, I got the footage of her entire story of her encounter of the night before on Friday evening. And she had went out. She said it was fairly late. Everybody had kind of went to bed, and she went out to go to the restroom and kind of it's hard to kind of think about it like it's a square, like a big square. So when part of it and an L-shaped portion of it was like a dry creek bed. Then the other L part of it is kind of just like it just goes up, right? Just like kind of up the ridge, right? And she went outside and she was kind of like she went to squat to go pee, and she's like, all of a sudden she just sees that this one huge area literally right in front of her was just black. Like she couldn't see the moonlight or anything through it. So she got nervous and just like went back into the tent, and she told her husband, she's like, I don't know what I just saw. Like, I think I saw something, and and he's like, just, no, you didn't. Like, he talked her out of the entire encounter. He literally, like, what she just experienced and what she described, he was like, no, you didn't see that. That's not what you saw. That's not what you saw. So when on Saturday night, when we had, Shane tracked it, found exactly where it moved all around camp. Everybody heard it. It was a whole thing. And we get her the next morning. She goes, oh my gosh, maybe it was one that I saw. And she starts describing it. And then the person that saw it, that was the witness, like they described the exact same thing, and they had not even spoken to each other. So it was really interesting to get, those. So they're watching us. Like they didn't come into camp Saturday night, but they were there watching, I'll bet, every night.
But how many times does something like that happen, though? That somebody sees something and somebody else talks them out of it? No, you didn't see that.
Yeah. Oh, I talked myself out of it the very first night because, so like she said, we camp in a great big hay field. Well, it's not great big, but it's a decent sized hay field that a creek runs along one side of it, and the other side of it is a hill that's wooded and
thick.
Yeah, it's thick, and we had set the camp up. Everybody's camped all along the edge of this field, for lack of a better, term. And we even had porta potties, but they were way down at the other end, right? I get up in the middle of the night. I'm like, I am not walking all the way down there. I just hop out of the tent, go behind, doing my business. And I'm thinking, man, this would not be the best time for something to just come out of the woods behind me, because where we were at, we were actually butted up against the creek. And I don't know, there was probably about 10 feet between our tent and the bank of the creek, but no big deal. Do my business, get back in the tent, go back to bed. 2 or 3 hours later, I wake up again. I got to go again. I'm like, are you kidding me? Okay. This time I step out, and as soon as I step out of the tent, it's like, nope. There was the creepiest feeling in that field. And I thought, yeah. I barely got outside the tent on the side, because I was like, I am not going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere at this point. So I think those things were there the whole time, because they're not used to people camping out there, I mean, they're used to the homeowner and the things that they do. So to have a bunch of us out there in the field, tromping around, cooking, doing whatever we're doing. And that Richard Taylor that I was talking about, he's got some compelling footage that could possibly be things standing in the woods watching us.
Mm-hmm.
He had shot some of that. So, and I just have to give a shout out. Wayne from Paranormal Odysseys on here, and he texted me. He's like, I'm watching you girls. Hi, Wayne. You're my
Wayne. I can't wait to see you. Yeah, it's going to be a blast. It's going to be so much fun. So listen, guys, she's not going to have these open spots for the expedition portion of the conference for very long. So y'all figure it out if you want to go, because it's going to be worth it. It's going to be worth it.
Yeah, we have a good time.
And I was thinking, since this is your first time on DA Ex Machina, I would really love to hear your first encounter again.
Okay.
And I know the boys will too.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, I've always been interested in, if it was weird, I was interested in it as a little kid, right? Go to the library and pick out all the books that had Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster, anything like that. And for years, I watched everything on TV. And I work in a spa with a bunch of women. And what they know I watch all the weird stuff on TV. And one day one of them said to me, "Oh yeah, my husband last night on the police scanner heard that there was a sighting in Kirbyville." I said, "What? Excuse me?" And start kind of questioning her. And she's like, "They do expeditions." And I said, who does expeditions? Wait a minute, back up, And she's like, "The BFRO." And I said, no, I didn't. How I did not know this, I don't know. But anyway, so I go on, I'm looking at it. Sure enough, they do expeditions in Missouri. And I'm like, no, they're not here. They're not in Missouri. No, they're East Coast, West Coast, So I come home and I'm telling my husband one night, I want to go Bigfoot hunting. He goes, "Excuse me, you want to do what?" He thought I'd lost my mind. But he agreed to do it. He said, "I'll go camping, you go Bigfoot hunting," but he agreed to do it. And so that was in 2019. And we went on the fall expedition that year. And, as we're pulling into camp that day, I told him, I said, "This is either going to be a blast or we're just out here meeting a bunch of lunatics. We're going to figure out real quick what's going on." And so we, I've met some of my best friends that have come from this at this point. But so, I had no clue. Dinner's done, they're doing talking, whatever, and they're like, "All right, everybody go get, geared up. We're going to head out." And so we go out to these areas. And for the most part, most of the evening was very uneventful. And it's about midnight and all the groups meet back up in this one area. And it's a place they've been multiple times. We get there, everybody's met up, everybody splits back into their smaller groups. And our group has 10 people in it. We walk down the road, we get to a certain point, and the leader says, "Let's walk off into this area and we'll just go back in here and sit down, see what we can hear," right? So we're sitting there and he's like, "Yeah, usually on a full moon, you don't see these things." Well, it was a full freaking moon. And I'm thinking, then what are we doing out here? If you don't see them on a full moon, what are we doing? But anyhow, we're sitting there and there's a younger lady sitting next to me and she's all camoed out. And I kind of thought it was funny at first because I'm like, that's just ridiculous, And then I'm listening to some of the other people talk and whatever. And I kind of looked away. I looked back at her. And at that point, I realized, oh my God, you really can't see her. If I didn't know she was sitting there, you wouldn't see her. You'd have walked right past her. And so I'm sitting there contemplating that, and the gentleman, most of the group is off to my right. And they start having a conversation about how many of us are there in this group, who's sitting where, and they're wanting to know who's sitting by this bush. And at this point, they have decided that who they think this is, it's not, that there's only 10 of us in this group and there's 11 of us sitting in this circle. And at that point, they jump up and move toward it. It jumps up, rolls over the berm, and is gone. And everybody at that point is standing up and facing them. And they're all discussing what they've seen, how big was it? What did everybody see, right? Well, I didn't see anything. The girl next to me didn't, We're just kind of listening to it. At this point, we start to hear noise behind us, and we're the farthest ones back because we were the farthest ones away from it. And it sounds like just this loud slapping. And there's this younger girl, she's standing next to me and her eyes are huge, kind of looked at my husband and he acknowledged, that he's hearing this noise too. And so I turned around, I took about 3 steps in that direction. And at that point, I see it. It has stepped out from behind the tree. And, you know, I'm not good. I can tell you 25 yards. It might have been 50, but, you know, I'm not good with my distance. But it was standing out and you could see it. It wasn't doing the tree peeking. It wasn't swaying. I mean, it stepped out and just stood there. It very much wanted us to pay attention to it. Now, I couldn't see details of the face or anything because it was a full moon and it's coming right down. So there's no details other than it's upright, 2 feet, large, broad shoulders, just this massive figure. And then it goes and steps to the other side of the tree and stands there. At this point, my husband hollers at the leader to come over. He's like, this is probably where you want to be. You want to check this out. And this gentleman was so excited from what had just happened that he never could really grasp what was right out there in front of him. And then about that time, to the left of that figure, another one starts moving around. So at that point, he's decided we're being surrounded and we need to leave. And I didn't really want to do that. I wanted to stay put because that's what we were there for. I was basically told that if I did not come willingly, I was going to be dragged out of the woods with the rest of them. I'm like, this is what I paid for. This is what I paid for. So begrudgingly, I walked out of the woods. And as we went out, something followed us. You could hear it. So we get back out to the road. We're walking back up to one of the other groups, which is standing up the road a ways from us. And they happened to be therming us at that point. And they said, you guys left somebody standing down there who's standing in the road. And we all laughed and went, we've already had this discussion. We are all here. So they were therming it and could see it. When we got back up there, they're showing us. And when we go to look at it again, it's gone. So they send one of the largest gentlemen back down there and he does not even compare. You know, this thing was huge. So we go back the next day to the same area, walk in. My husband finds a print in a mud hole. Now it was full of water, but it was perfect track right there. You know, nice size track. One gentleman tried to cast it, but there was so much water in it. They didn't have anything to get the water out with, so it just didn't work. But we went back into the area that we had sat down in. And this area, when you stood up on the berm and looked at it, this is a flat area that has no saplings, nothing. It looked like a large area where large animals had been bedding down at night. Because if you turned around and looked on the other side of the berm, there's saplings all over the place. This one had no saplings. So I don't know if we walked into an area that they sleep. I don't know, but we had essentially one sitting with us and other ones on the other side of us.
The one that was sitting close to you, how close was
it? To some of the other guys, it was probably 5 feet from them, maybe.
And they didn't notice?
No, that's the thing. We don't know if it was there.
That's the craziest part.
Yeah. Well, that kind of fits right in with what we've been talking about, the clear hair shafts. If you watch the Paul Freeman footage, you see that large black Bigfoot stop in front of that green tree, and it just disappears. It didn't go through a portal. It didn't cloak. It didn't turn on invisible. Scotty didn't beam it up to the Enterprise. It just stopped moving. And
I can't do it, Captain.
Yeah. The engines, they cannot take the strain. But it didn't just get beamed up to the Enterprise. It just blended into its surroundings. And as soon as it started moving again, you could see it. So if it was sitting there completely motionless, odds are very good you wouldn't even notice it unless you look right at it and, we're able to, wait a minute, there's a shape here. But just at first glance, it would blend perfectly in with its surroundings.
Because here's the thing, DA. It didn't start moving again until Freeman started moving towards it again. Because he was filming it. It realized he was there. It stopped, disappeared. he starts talking. He starts moving towards it again. It realizes the little hairless monkey ain't leaving me alone. I need to get out of here. And it turned. And as soon as it turns, there you see it again.
But Robbie,
Daddy,
you and
beam me up.
Robbie, you and I have had this conversation more than once about how your eyes are attracted to the movement.
Mhm.
That anything can camouflage itself. The second that it begins to move, that's when you're going to be able to track it and see the movement.
Like I've said, it's same with every deer I've ever shot. I didn't even see it until it started moving.
Yeah.
It is very difficult to see a deer in the woods if it's not moving. If it's in amongst the trees and the grass and everything, they're very difficult to see. And that's just natural adaptive camouflage. That's not Scotty beaming it up. That's not, deer going through portals. That it doesn't have a belt of invisibility. It didn't get the one ring from smog and be able to slip on the ring and turn invisible. It's just a natural camouflage ability.
Yeah, and they didn't see this. I mean, they did not know this thing was there until they moved toward it. I mean, they thought it was there. They thought something was sitting there because they could see the outline. And once they moved, that is only when it moved. So, I mean, there's no telling if they'd have just sat there and watched it. There's no telling how long it might have just sat there.
Well, and, me and DA was talking about this the other day. I said I was listening to a show that Cam did, and he was talking. He read a story about where a guy's had 3 separate encounters in his life, and he was like, Cam was like, "Man, I wish I could have that. I just wish I could have that." He said, "But think about this, folks, and this is something to really think about. How many times have you been in the woods and on your 4-wheeler, walking, whatever, and walked by one and never even knew it?" Because it was just standing there and it didn't want you to see it. It didn't move or you didn't catch it. But, it's just like, I was on Jessica's show the other night and we did that on the Beast of 7 Shoots. I believe that thing was down there. It grabbed something out of the river and it just got caught off guard and got caught on the camera. But how many times does stuff like that happen and you don't even know it?
Dude, I was walking down a trail that I've walked 1,000 times, and I started around a little bend in the trail, and a deer jumped up out of the bushes, and I nearly crapped myself. And I didn't see it until it was moving. I mean, I was close enough to jump on that thing. Of course, it would have beat the living hell out of me if I'd have grabbed it, but I was close enough to grab it and it was on top of it before it moved. And like I said, that was almost a brown pants moment.
But case in point, when we found our little blind or a kill spot or whatever,
hunting blind,
you knew where I was at, you knew what I was wearing, you knew exactly where I was at. You walked 13 yards away, turned around and could not see me and knew where to look.
Yeah, and I didn't see you again until I came back down the trail and was almost on top of you, and I knew where you were at. Had that been a situation where I was just walking down that trail, fat, dumb, and happy, I would have walked up on top of something close enough for it to grab me before I ever would have saw it.
And we've talked about this. That is the exact, when we were out there that first time, and DA said, "Well, I don't see it anymore." And I looked and I said, "That's because it ain't left." It was going in the direction of that. I think it was trying to lead us over, which is when the rule of Robbie came about, where Noah beside.
Yeah, Noah's the official Robbie wrangler when we go out into the woods.
Yeah. DA gives his Marty. You'll get a kick out of this. When we all get boots on the ground out there. DA gives his safety speech. Steve and Noah are standing behind me and around me. And DA says, "Nobody wanders off." I looked over at Steve and I said, "That's me." And DA turned around, "Yes, that's exactly because of you."
Yeah, Marianne, your setup for your story reminded me of some of those Scooby-Doo cartoons. When they're running from the ghost. And then before you know it, they're all sitting there. The ghost is sitting right with them. Yeah. And then, they have that realization, I'm sitting there, they're counting. Well, I think there's 11 guys with us. Wait, there's 12. Oh, shit.
Yeah, exactly.
Or whatever the number was.
But that's, it's a fun joking point, but that's what I'm talking about. If these things don't want to be seen, if they just stand still and just look in nature, we said it 1,000 times, there are plenty of animals we know for sure have adaptive camouflage. Why is it so hard to believe that these things do?
Right.
Well, even human,
and it's a much more
soldiers.
believable explanation than, I cannot change the laws of physics, Captain.
Even human soldiers. I've told on this show before my paintballing story with my special forces friend. We're standing in an oak savanna. He's 10 feet away from me. I turn my back for a second. He's gone. Like he vanished. And before I know it, I'm getting shot. He just, knew how to camouflage himself, and he, moved just enough to get where he was partly covered and stood still. And not having the experience, I had no idea what was going on.
And and this kind of answers Spencer's comment right there. Nobody's saying that they don't or they can't.
Right.
What we're just saying is everything that I've seen, and I've probably had more than my fair share of encounters, but I go out looking for stuff, and I'm not just a casual observer, and I know Spencer, you're not either, so I'm not saying that, but what I've seen, and Marty and I have had this conversation when we were out in Florida. DA and I have had this conversation. Steve and I have had this conversation. What I've seen shows me nothing other than a flesh and blood animal that's just doing what it was born to do in nature. Deers can do it. Bear can do it. Owls can do it. Bugs can do it. Sharks can do it. If something is born with a natural ghillie suit, and from the time it's born, its parents teach it to stay away from the hairless monkeys with the boomstick. What can something like, if we can teach a human to disappear, like Steve was just talking about, he turns his back and then turns back around and his buddy's completely gone. A human can be taught to do that. What can something that's born with a natural ghillie suit that has lived its entire life in the woods and in these places, what can it do?
Hey, y'all, this comment is a perfect example. The film from the passenger train has one sitting down in the midst of scrub brushes trying to disappear. I'm sure everybody's seen that video. It's a video taken from a passenger train in Colorado, and you see one squat down among the scrub brush. The people that put on the train ride admitted that was a guy that they put out there in a suit. But even for a guy in a cheap Bigfoot suit, it still blended into its surroundings almost perfectly when it stopped moving.
And we showed the video on here, the doll sheep that Steve showed me.
That's a great video.
I wish we still had. You've seen it, Marty.
Yeah, listen.
We gotta locate that video.
Haven't you guys ever seen? Have you ever seen that? There's a video, and it's kind of like a psychology video. It's not a Bigfoot video, but it's kind of like and you can find it if you Google it look for it on YouTube. It's on YouTube. I forgot what it's called, but there's like these kids, and they're all in a circle, and they're bouncing a basketball back and forth, and they're all wearing white shirts, all white. And they're bouncing a basketball back and forth, this one to this one to this one to this one. And then all of a sudden at the very end of the video, like it's like very short video, maybe a minute. And it's like, oh, did you see the big gorilla did anybody see the big gorilla? And you're like, wait, what? And you go back and you watch, and literally in the middle of all of these people bouncing this ball back and forth, because you're watching the people in the ball, a guy in a gigantic black gorilla suit walks right in the middle of the entire thing and walks right past all of them.
And, it's like, DA and I have talked about this from the law enforcement standpoint. If you're not
looking for something specific.
From the law enforcement standpoint, if you go to investigate a murder or any kind of serious crime that somebody has witnessed, say there's 15 people out, or let's just say there's 5 people out there who witnessed it, and you ask all 5 of them what happened, you're going to get 5 different accounts of what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just the fact that not everybody perceives everything the same way.
Mm-hmm.
One person's going to focus in on one thing, another person's going to focus on another thing. And it's just because people work different. It's just like alcohol doesn't affect the exact 2 people the exact same way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Everybody's body chemistry is different. That's why you can't prescribe one medication for one person that's got something, and the same person, the other person's got the same thing, because their body chemistry is different. their chemistry may react differently. It's the same thing. One person looks at it and they're focused in on this, and another person's focusing on that, and that's why you get, well, he had a hat on. Well, did you see what color shirt? No, I didn't see that. Well, he had a blue shirt. Well, did he have a hat? I don't know. I didn't see a hat. But does that mean that he didn't have a hat, or he did have a hat, or he didn't have a blue shirt? No, it just means that person noticed that.
Didn't observe that. Didn't observe that specific detail.
And to answer the question right here that Craig's got, most everybody that's on this screen, other than Marianne, has heard me explain this. It's backtracking. I mean, that's my opinion. I'm not saying that's 100%, but it's backtracking.
And Robbie's a trained tracker. He tracks people for his police department. If they have a runner or a fugitive, he's the guy they call to get out and track this guy down.
And once you get into the way things work and how things go, Steve's never done it, but he heard me give all these explanations the other night when we were out there, and he even pulled me. He said, "Man, that makes a lot of sense. I never thought about it that way."
Well, Robbie, let me ask you this as a tracker. So, I've heard people, so when they're tracking these, the stride on these things when they're moving at a pretty good pace is, anywhere from 5 to 7 feet. That's just when they're walking, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So say it stops and it decides to jump. How far could that thing jump? If it can stride 5, 6 feet, how far could it jump?
Well, I mean, if a human can do a standing broad jump at 10 feet.
Exactly. And
there's been people who've seen them standing jump clear a road.
Yeah. So, I mean, here's the thing. If you are just out there and you don't know track morphology and you don't know pressure points and primary point of impact and all the multiple terms that come with track, because I didn't know before I went to the class. I mean, and I went to the class, I start telling you all this stuff, and you're like, wow, that's a lot. There is a lot to a track other than just something's foot going down and making an impression in the ground.
I thought I was a pretty good tracker. I've been tracking game my whole life. I've been deer hunting, and I've hunted pretty much everything you can hunt in the Midwest. I've hunted it at one point, been out in the woods, or shot something and had to track it down. I thought I was a pretty good tracker until I went out first time with Robbie, and I learned more about tracking in those couple hours than I had the previous existence of my life.
And I'm by no means an expert in it. I've just kind of really poured myself into it, and I've learned a lot about it. And I've went out and I went to the class specifically for law enforcement, but a track is a track. Track morphology is going to work for a deer. It's going to work for a human. It's going to work for a Bigfoot. It's going to work for a racket. An animal or human or whatever that moves and leave, you're not going to go out into the woods and not leave some kind of sign, whether that be an animal, human, Bigfoot, whatever. It's going to leave some kind of sign. And knowing what to look for, knowing the things to look for is step one. But when you get to actually finding a track and looking at it, easiest and quickest way to explain this without having to get into a whole lot of detail, like I did out there the other night. Think about if you're walking, this is the heel of my hand. If I'm walking forward, what's going to be the first part of my hand that hits the ground? It's going to be the heel of my hand. The heel is going to be your primary point of contact, or impact rather, when you hit. So when you step and go forward, any dirt or debris or anything that's on the bottom of your foot is going to follow your foot forward. That disbursement is going to go forward. If you're backtracking, it's going to be the opposite. Your toes are going to hit first, so the disbursement is going to go the other way. So you have to look for that disbursement out of the track. Look at socketing, which, like if I stepped on a rock and pushed it down,
pressure edges in the track will be totally different.
Yeah, the pressure registration will be different because of the way the weight disperses left or right. There's so much that goes into it that if you don't understand or know all that stuff, and you look at it, you're just out walking in a set of tracks, just stop. I mean, I get it. I can understand where you're like, well, what happened? But if animals and other known animals, grizzlies, rabbits, things like that, we know that they backtrack. I've read thousands of stories of hunters who were hunting a grizzly bear. Next thing they knew, it was behind them because it started backtracking. I've heard of hunters talking about the way rabbits will run coon or rabbit dogs in a circle so tight that they'll start backtracking, and all of a sudden they're behind the dogs, and it's almost like they're chasing the dogs. If those animals can do it, why can't these?
Mm-hmm.
And if the tracks stop in the middle of a field, then like Marianne was saying, we don't know how far these things can jump. You know, if they stop in the middle of a field and they're within 50 feet of a large tree, I'll put money on the fact they could reach it.
Not only that, I mean, we really don't know what the surface of the bottom of their feet are, right?
Well,
I mean, we don't know if it's like if they're like pads, or if it's like, I mean, we really don't, we don't know that. So
look at big cat's feet. They are made for stealth and silence. How many times have people talked about being out in the woods and all of a sudden this thing was behind them? So
yeah,
I just tend to believe that they have that type of padding on their feet to where they're built for silence and stealth. Because if you're a lot of your diet is depending on sneaking up on a deer or an elk or something like that, you need to be able to sneak up on it.
Not only
that's
that,
why,
my uncle, my uncle, who I based the character of Jay Matoska off of in my books, my Uncle Buddy taught me how to walk quietly in the woods. Yes, you're still going to make noise, but you're not going to sound like a human. There are ways you can learn to walk quietly, and if you can teach one of us to do it, what about something that's born there?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
I hate changing the tempo of their stride. Humans were accustomed to having a certain rhythm to our steps, and listening for that. This creature moves in some kind of a offbeat cadence. It may not register in your head that it's walking.
That's very true. It's very true. But going back to your point earlier, when you guys were talking about the way that they're raised and the way that they're taught from very little, I mean, I always think about Shane talking about those holes with the stick in them. To me, that is the most fascinating thing in the world, that he's found that so many times. And I feel like, and then he finally found one, and he'd been finding them in the 400 for, 6-7 years and never really said much about it, but had been documenting them the entire time. And then eventually, I think, Marianne, it was last year, right, when he found a juvenile hand right next to one, right?
He found that in the 400. And then one day when we were out on the private property that we go to, we were with him, and he found one out there. And I don't know. I don't think they're doing this to eat anything, because
I think it's to keep them busy and quiet while mom's doing something.
Exactly. And then this spring, and so he's been telling me about these holes. And this spring, when we were out on our spring expedition, I found one along the river in a completely different place. And I would have walked past it if I hadn't known that. So then I looked at it, took pictures of it, sent it to him. He's like, "Where is that?" I said, completely different place, but anyway.
Yeah, it's very, very curious to me. And I feel like they take a lot of time, I think, into teaching their young to be quiet, non-moving, move very little or not at all, silent. I think that they really, or it's something inherent with them. You know what I mean? That they're just born to do. I don't know. It could be that too. I don't know. But I find it interesting that, I think I'll bet you a lot of researchers don't even know to think about looking for these little holes and with the stick. And that's why I always try to bring it up. I know Shane's probably done with me over that, but I just find it interesting because I ask everybody that comes on my show, I'm like, have you ever seen this? Because it's interesting to me, because I feel like there's a lot of times there's evidence that we don't know is evidence.
One of the
Right?
things we've noticed in a lot of the areas we've been to, and I've spoken to several, including William Nighthawk. I've spoken to several Native Americans on the subject, and
Mhm.
that's when we find spruce trees with the bark stripped. We found spruce trees in Combs Ferry that had bark stripped to about 15 feet up.
Didn't one of the small town monsters, they did their Alaska, weren't they finding birch trees with like
Mm-hmm.
the bark
Different trees,
missing?
the bark has medicinal properties. Spruce bark, you can chew it and it acts like a natural painkiller. It's also got
Interesting.
antiseptic properties.
Yeah.
There are loads of different types of plants that have natural medicinal properties
Mhm.
that the Native Americans have been using for generations. And one of the things I've talked to several researchers here in the Midwest is a lot of times when they're finding what they call tree bows or tree structures, they're near large sections where there are medicinal plants. And even Ed Testerman, who's in the group in the chat tonight, out on his property, he's found spruce bark stripped to like almost 20 feet up a tree. And that's not a deer. That's not a porcupine. That's something very big, stripping medicinal bark off of a tree in a distinctive pattern.
And I would say we
Wow.
probably found 5, 6 trees in that same area where we found the carcass and the fish head,
right there by it.
all in that area, done the same way. It's like DA would see one over here, and then somebody else would say, "Hey, there's one over here," and like 5 or 6 different trees that was done to.
That's weird. That's a weird one.
Well, it makes sense if they strip cedar bark and like cedar limbs to make bed nesting, because cedar is a natural bug repellent.
Mhm.
Yes.
If they're using cedar branches to weave into nests, it will keep bugs off of them.
Yep.
Yeah.
Bugs were very thick out there.
Yes, they were. I probably swallowed a pound of protein in the first 15 minutes we were there. You couldn't breathe without getting a freaking face full of bugs. Got a super chat from Sentinel. Thank you, brother. Appreciate you, man.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Hi, little Patty.
So, I mean,
and Brian Barber.
I just, I want to reiterate that what we're saying is we're not saying that it's the end all be all and it's our way of the house. DA, Steve, and I think Marty kind of falls in the same categories as we do. It's just, that's our belief. That's what the evidence has showed me. It's like, I've said that you can't start at point A and then your next step is point Z. You have to go every point in between and look at what's out there. And that's what I've seen, is that's what the evidence shows me. I'm an evidence guy. That's just how I am.
And I think all of us are evidence-based, but I'm going to speak for myself here. I mean, I've been out numerous times and weird stuff happens. Okay. Weird, strange, weird stuff. So I know that, the last time Matt and I went out, he's like, well, look, we're hearing something and he's like, and I'm like, well, you got the night vision. Look at he's checking through the night vision. And I have it on camera, and he's like, I think it's an eye. And I'm like, it's an eye, like an eye? And he's like, yeah, but it's really big. And like, by the time when I got home and I checked the footage, it's clearly some sort of, it looks like an orb. I didn't see it. Matt, like, he was literally like looking at the night through the night vision, and he was doing like this, like it's kind of shaky, but he's like doing this because he wasn't seeing it with his naked eye, but through the night vision, you could see it perfectly. It was bouncing in between the trees, like going in between the trees. I have it on my channel. I don't remember what episode, but it's there, guys, if you want to find it. But like weird things do happen to us, but we try always, or at least I do, and I know you guys do. We start from A, then we go to B, then we go, and then if it's not A, then we go to B. If it's not B, then we go to C. If it's not, instead of going A and then all the way to Z, it's like we all try to, go through that mental Rolodex of, okay, what is it or what could it be explained easily and naturally in the environment that we're in.
And I think what you're saying, to sum up what you're saying, Marty, is nobody says that it can't be that they're walking through portals or doing this or doing that, but you have to go through that process. You can't just say, okay, the track stopped here, they must have went in a portal. That's like DA said, has used this example many times. We get called to a scene and there's a murder and the guy's in the house laying there dead, but the door's locked. You can't say, oh, well, somebody must have portaled in and killed him and then portaled out.
I want to know that trick.
Yeah, right.
It doesn't work that way.
You'll be peeing in a cup come first thing in the morning.
Yeah, you have to. Now, if the evidence leads to the fact where something is portaled, okay, that's what it leads to. But what we're saying is what the evidence has led us to so far on our our
journeys.
Yeah, I can't speak for what anybody else's evidence has showed them. I can just speak for what I've seen myself. I've seen with me and DA. I've been out with Marty. Everything that I've seen just shows flesh and blood animal doing what an animal does.
And another thing, just because we can't explain something doesn't automatically make it paranormal.
True.
And doesn't mean it's automatically something associated with Bigfoot either.
Right.
True.
Right.
Whoops. Sorry. True.
Because here's the thing.
If you've got hot dogs on your campfire and you go in the RV and you come back and they're gone, probably not Bigfoot. You've probably got a very sneaky raccoon in your area.
Yeah. And
but it doesn't mean
my wife's been nearby.
And you know this, Marty. I had never seen a portal or never had a paranormal experience. But when I went to the LBL, I believe I saw orbs. I can't explain what I saw, but me being me, Greg and Johnny are standing back there, and I'm like, "Hey guys, I'm gonna walk about 100 yards down the road, out in the middle of the woods."
You saw an orb?
Yeah.
I've never even seen an orb.
Well, I'm pretty sure I did, but I didn't want to be. Look, I didn't want to be standing right beside Johnny and Greg and them saying, and I didn't want my stimulus being based off what they were seeing, and I didn't want to feel like, okay, I'm seeing that because. So I walked a good ways. I could still hear what they were saying, but I would see stuff that they wouldn't talk about. But I also see stuff that I would hear them talk about. It's like I would see something that was red go in a diagonal pattern off like that, and Greg would be like, "Oh, did you see that red one right there?" I'm like, "Okay, I saw that." Then I hear him talk about it, but then I would see like a yellow one move over here, and they wouldn't say anything about it. So I can't explain what I saw. I don't. We were nowhere near where any road was, or as far as I know, would not be anybody else around in the area that we were out at. Could it have been? Yeah, but I do not have an explanation for what I saw that night. Now, the rest of what we saw after we put the cameras and everything up, I have a strong suspicion about what that was. I believe we were being hunted by a couple of dogmen, but that's, that was my story.
And you're sticking to it.
Yeah. Well, once I got back to camp, and we went through that whole ordeal about how the camera equipment went that night. Steve was on the show that night. Everything was fine before we went live. We went live. Me and Johnny just blacked out.
Within like 30 seconds of us going live, everything was crystal clear. As soon as we went live, they lost power.
But
wow!
After talking to several people, Spencer and Greg included, come to find out, we were pretty close to where the original kill site was from the 1980s. From that family, we were within probably what I say about 100 yards of that DA. What we found out.
Yeah, I've been there, so I know how creepy it is.
Yeah,
it's very it's such a strange. I mean, unless you have been there, it's very difficult to explain how the energy feels or how your body kind of tends. Number one, you're literally on edge. You're like, you feel like something's going to jump out at you every second. I don't care if it's daytime, whatever. I mean, you just have that feeling. It's a lot of anxiety, a lot of nausea for me. I was like totally like, oh my God, this is one of the creepiest places my hair was standing straight up on my arms. I mean, it was a very, very weird, creepy place.
Well, and yeah, creepy is. I told Johnny this when we were standing, and this is broad daylight. And DA laughs every time I say this because it's true. It's how I felt. We were standing down at DeMumbers Bay. I called DA on the phone. I said, "Hey, we're down here at DeMumbers Bay," and he was like, "Weird, ain't it?" I said, "Yeah." Johnny and I were walking through this wooded area, and there was like one or two people camping, but we were off like walking down the edge of the lake, and we got off of the woods, and I looked at Johnny and I said, "Dude, if Jason Voorhees stepped out from behind one of these trees, it would not shock me right now." That's just the feel of it. There were no, we could hear birds way off in the distance, but there was nothing around us. There was no waterfowl, there was no insect sounds, there was no armadillos, no squirrels, no nothing. It was just dead. It was like we were in a vacuum. And it was weird. And it's just hard to put, like you said, Marty, it's hard to put a description on the feeling it gives you.
Yeah.
That place is just, it's off.
It's different. It's very different than I've been in. The only other place, and you've been there too, Robbie, you were there with Jess, and we were there with Jess. It's up in the North Georgia mountains. Now, that place, same kind of thing, right?
Yep.
It was the same exact vibes in that spot.
And see, but there was two different experiences at that place. Yeah. The very first time that I went with her, it was okay, and you hear crickets and everything. It was like we were having to like really talk loud so we could hear each other. We were standing 2 feet away from each other, and all of a sudden, everything just stopped.
Just shuts off.
The second time we got there, and now the only difference that time was, other than it was the same time of year, but the only difference is we had our son with us that time. We stepped out of the vehicle that time, and it was like stepping out like you and I stepped out at Joe Ball that time, DA, stepping into a vacuum. Everything was already stopped and quiet and dead. But it was a totally different feeling. Even at that point, when stuff did start happening, it felt a lot more ominous. Felt just like we felt in Joe Ball that night, DA, like we were being hunted. That's the feeling I felt that night. The first time, it just felt like more curious, kind of like what we felt in Combs Ferry, like maybe territorial, maybe curiosity, something like that. But that second time, it was like what we felt in Joe Ball. It was like whatever was there, it was a little bit more curiosity. But if you haven't gone to a place like this and experienced that, it's just, you can't describe.
You can't.
And I think you even experienced a little time loss at that place, didn't you, Marty?
Yeah. Missing time, actually.
Yeah.
I still don't know where the time is or where it went. I don't know. I have considered, like, I don't know, doing like regression therapy, but I don't think I want to know.
Yeah. And to answer your question, 3D, yes, we at the LBL, we actually got into that night.
There's at least 3 ley lines that run through LBL.
That place is
for sure.
What you call a vortex. Which one,
Robbie? Was it similar to the feeling that night when we found the deer head in the middle of the road?
Yeah, on Blunt Road. Yeah, that was freaky too. Riding down the road in the middle of nowhere on this road where there's just like, it's like you're riding through a tunnel of trees basically. And DA's like, "What the heck is that in the middle of the road?" And I said, "It's a deer head." Just a freaking deer head laying in the middle of the road.
And it hadn't been cut off either. It had been torn off.
What road was that?
Blunk Road here down by Galena, Missouri.
I know exactly where that's at because I grew up in Galena.
We were right almost to the river.
Yeah, I have an encounter this lady gave me years ago because I grew up in Galena and my family is from there. And I would ask my mother, I'm like, so did you guys not ever have stories? Because my dad was actually a river guide a long time ago when he was young. And I'm like, are there not stories? Well, everything that they talked about is the cougars, the panthers that would scream on the river. Well, we know what that is, but that's what they called it, So yeah, there's a lot of stuff. My grandmother lived on that road and she had a house there. And as a kid, I would stay with her. And this realization did not hit me until a few years ago. So when you would stay with her at night, there would be things that hit the side of the house, not real hard, but there was always, just kind of a slap. And she'd say, oh, that's just the coyotes running past the house and hitting it. Well,
coyotes don't hit the house.
I know, right? Never thought about it, never questioned her. I think the one time I did question her, she goes, it's their tail. When they run around the corner of the house, the tail slaps the house. Okay, fine, whatever. I'm a little kid. That's my grandmother. A couple of years ago, 3 years ago, I think, I'm watching some Bigfoot show, right? I mean, that's what everybody does. And I have this realization. I'm looking at a dog that I have that does not have a big fluffy tail. It has a hard tail. And it dawns on me at this point that if that dog was outside and its tail was hitting the side of the house, I would not hear it.
Yeah. Some of the stories I heard about that area down by Galena, and I've got several friends who were Stone County deputies. That's where I got a lot of the stories. That's the reason I called the third book of my Lakeview Man series, Lakeview Man, the Beast of Blunk Road.
Yeah. Okay.
That's why I said it there.
How many of y'all heard this? Oh, it's just a house settling.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I heard, when I used to go to my real dad's house every other weekend, he lived out in the middle where I sent you the picture that I found that big wolf track DA, and I think I sent it to you too, Marty. Mm-hmm. Just out in the middle of nowhere, and you'd hear stuff, you'd hear big noises in the house. Oh, that's just a house settling.
How long does
this house is like, this house is 50 years old. You should have settled.
Still settling.
It's settled a long time ago.
Should have settled by now.
House just settled a painting off the wall.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. Well, yeah, and so my grandmother lived on Blunk's Road, and I was there all the time as a kid. I was always out there because we lived in town. She lived on that road, and I remember one time I had a horse. I would ride down to the river, and one day I thought I saw a bear going through the field, right? And my mother worked in the courthouse, knew all the deputies at the time, even the, like the conservation, all that. And I told her, I was like, hey, I saw a bear, and she's like, what? Yeah, I said, well, that's what it looked like. Got the horse's attention, that's for sure, right? And so she said something to some of the deputies, conservation, and they're like, yeah, no, not in this area. And I mean, this was years ago when I was a kid, right?
Yeah.
They're like, no.
That wasn't until the 90s when they introduced black bear in northern Arkansas and they started coming up here. I was a kid in the Ozarks in the 80s, and you did not see black bear in Missouri. You just didn't.
Exactly. That was it. So it's like now, I just thought all these years I had seen a bear. It's like, okay, what did I actually see? I mean, because the police and the conservation department were convinced there weren't no bear there. So.
Well, yeah, if you think about when we were all younger and things like that happened, I've said this with DA and I've said it on Marty's show. My great grandmother used to tell me where I had my first sighting. I always don't you go too far in the woods, the boogers will get you. And I always just wrote it off to, okay, she's just, she's trying to scare me or she's talking about monsters. But my great grandparents never balked at the fact that I said, they never said, no, you're crazy. My mom and my grandparents both did, and my stepdad even at that time did. And of course, my uncle the same way. But my great grandparents never said that they didn't believe me or anything like that. And I've told this story. DA's like, he keyed in on the fact my great grandfather had a dog that he would turn the cows into the back pasture during the early part of the day, and then on about 5-6 o'clock, he'd tell Ben, "Go get them," and dog would go get the cows and bring them back up to the front pasture and close that gate. You know, there was no other houses around. It was on the back part of his property. Why would he? I mean, other than just putting them in the barn for safety, as far as from like coyotes, which back then what coyotes were not the problem that they are now. And he had a couple of big bulls. I don't think a coyote would have messed with them cows. Why would he do that so much? I mean, that was an everyday thing.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't he say because there was a bear down there or something?
Well, they used to say that there was a bear in that area. And like I said, after I had my encounter, my dad, my uncle, my two great uncles, my grandpa, and my great grandpa all went down in that swamp area back behind the house looking for the bear. Now, I never heard anything about that because they wouldn't let me go, but they all went down there looking for it. And I've asked my stepdad, even so now that he believes me, and he's never really, he said they didn't really find anything, but I've seen bear tracks around this area, but there's just too much going on to believe that there wasn't, or still isn't, apparently now, according to what we've found out.
Well, that's just what, half a mile up the road from where those dumpsters are getting moved, Robbie.
Oh, it's not even half a mile, dude. It's like 0.2 of a mile.
So just a hop and a skip.
Yeah.
I think a game cam should be deployed.
Well, and that's why Dad's going to talk to some of them people that he still knows that owes that land. See if we can do that. Of course, he's got game cameras up now around his area. So who knows? We may catch something on one of his shops.
John,
I know
I'll be having a game cam outside my tent this year, Marianne, just so you know.
John Wayne
I want one from both, from like this side, this side. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's happening.
John Wayne Gates is absolutely right. Douglas County is still to this day referred to as Booger County.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
and the original Missouri Blue Man sightings come from Douglas County.
Exactly.
Yep. Robbie, you don't know what you're missing. See, you should have not went on so many doggone trips already this year.
The only trip I went on was to go see DA. I mean, that's...
Well, you should have just stayed until September.
We tried to convince him he needs to move down here.
Yeah. I don't know why he's all the way over in BFE.
Hey, I'm closer to you than I am to him.
I know. You don't even call me up no more and be like, hey, meet me in Ocala.
Well, Ocala's about an 8-hour drive from me. It's just not a 12-hour drive.
We kind of avoid Ocala, if you know what I mean.
I know. I gotcha. I'm just teasing him. Yeah, that was a pretty creepy night, though.
Yeah, it was.
Because everything, we were like just kind of looking around, we're just kind of looking around. And then it was just like.
Luckily, we had our Savior there with us.
Right. But it was a very strange thing. All I can tell you is I don't know what the hell that growl was. And when I said to Robbie, I'm like, did you hear that? Like real soft, I'm quiet. And I'm like, did you hear that? And he's like, uh-huh. And I'm like, that's not a bear. And he's like, uh-uh. And I'm like, I was about 2 feet from him and I took one step and I was on his shoulder. I was like, what was it? We're both like looking around. It was a very unnerving, especially considering we couldn't see anything. We couldn't find anything. We didn't see any eye shine. We didn't see anything that matched up with that sound we heard. It was crazy.
And of course, I started wandering off again that night and going towards the sound. Marty's like, get back over here.
Robbie's bound determined to become a missing 411.
See, but Robbie and I would get along real well because I tend to do that stuff too. I get in trouble because they're like, stop doing that.
I'm convinced Noah is every time that I come around him when he's hugging me, he's measuring me for one of them little harnesses with a.
We're gonna put a collar and a lead on you, Robbie.
Oh my word. Well, Matt's always got me Matt always knows where I am, right? He's always triangulating my location. So it doesn't matter where I am in the world. I got eyes on me no matter where I go.
Yes, Greg, I tend to wander off and just go looking and I tend to make DA and Noah nervous.
And that's why whenever we're in the field, Noah's job is he gets on the parabolic mic, and he's the official Robbie Wrangler.
But I feel like that's part of his job, right? Like that's part of what he does as an investigator. It's not, and he's very confident in the fact that he knows how to, conduct himself and keep himself calm in certain situations. So I feel like I understand him in that way. You know what I'm saying? Like he totally understands and feels comfortable investigating and checking things out and not needing to have a wing girl on his shoulder every second. So I get it.
Case in point, and DA kind of chided me for this, but that night when we were in the Ocala, you and that other person who shall remain nameless were back at the truck. I was probably 150 yards away from y'all and walked off the side of the road and y'all couldn't even see me. I don't think about. I mean, right. I do think about the danger. Don't get me wrong. It's not that I'm oblivious to the danger. I just, like Marty said, I'm comfortable with myself, and I know that if I get into a situation that I feel like I can't handle, I know what I can do. It just sometimes it makes the people I'm with a little bit nervous about.
And you're processing information at a different level and on different speed as well. That's something that I definitely notice when I'm out there with you, because you're processing information at a very fast rate. And DA, I'll bet you do the same. And Steve, you probably do the same. I mean, working in the, as a nurse, like there's certain jobs where you are trained to process information extremely quickly and then think about what your options are. Boom, 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 boom. You're 6 steps ahead of everybody else in that fast, right? So all I know is that I'll be more than happy to go in the woods with any of y'all, because I know y'all gonna take care of me. So
when we were on our expedition, the part that was bothering me was when we ran across that deer leg, my mind's trying to process anatomically what happened to it. And as I was putting it together, nothing that I was putting together was anything good. And, I was like, okay,
it's bipedal alligator. Oh, crap.
Well, I'm like, yeah, basically, I'm like, okay, that's a foreleg. It's disarticulated at the elbow. It's not cut. It's disarticulated. I'm like, okay, what's strong enough disarticulated deer leg? Not a whole lot of good stuff. And I'm looking at the blood going, this is 2 or 3 day old blood. So it was disarticulated here. And it's 7 feet up a tree.
And if it had been done by a wolf or a coyote, there would have been teeth marks in the leg. But you can look at the images; there are no teeth marks in.
That's exactly it. Everything that I could put it together that would be less frightening to me wasn't a possibility. I'm like, okay, it's 7-8 feet up a tree. Okay, mountain lions put their foot up trees. There's no claw marks. It's a little tree. Well, shit, there goes that. And bear behavior, coyote behavior. And the more I'm thinking about it, the more I'm like, okay, I can't put anything together that's giving me a clean answer that I'm happy with. And as my mind's working on that, then we see, the tree trout. And I could, I had even more questions, It was just.
Like I said, and you're right with that the medical thing starts working in your mind in a way that they kind of don't get, right? Like Robbie and DA aren't even thinking in that way. Huh?
Yeah. I'm not much of a believer either. I'm the agnostic of the group. I'm the skeptic. I call myself an agnostic because I want to believe, but I want more proof than I've seen. And so that made it even harder for me because, we joke about the screeching sound they heard was, my paradigm shifting and I missed the shift.
Paradigm shifting
Nothing-
without a clutch.
Hey, Steve, if you
Basically,
can't find them, grind them, buddy.
Basically, yeah. And so that's when the whole frantic inner monologue that turned outer, along with the expletives directed towards Robbie,
Right.
coming into play, because at that point I'm like, my logic is failing me and I'm not liking it, because my logic is how I run my life. I'm a logical person. If I don't observe something and understand it correctly, people could die.
That's right.
And I could not come up with an understanding, and I was panicking.
And here's the thing, and I don't want anybody to think we're goofing off and laughing, cutting up. Steve was still
serious when we were in the field,
and Steve was still very in control of his facilities and his faculties, and he didn't like turn and run, and he wasn't.
Yeah, we like to give him a hard time, but
I don't think
balls. That's how life goes.
I don't think I'm stepping out of line to say that Steve definitely had a paradigm shift that night. He may not be completely over here where, okay, I 100% believe these things are real, but definitely he was definitely moved from the middle to his needle moved a little bit further to, okay, I saw some stuff that I cannot explain. There is no thing naturally that I can work out in my mind that did that right there. And I don't like where I'm at right now.
Exactly.
And is that a fair assessment, Steve?
That's a very fair assessment. And, like I said before, I'm an Eagle Scout. I'm not a hunter. I've never been a hunter. I have no philosophical objection to it. I'm just honestly too damn lazy. But I've been in the woods my whole life. I camp. I spent many a night in the woods. That's what poor rednecks do in this, part of the state. You camp. And, no natural creature that I had come across in almost 48 years of living in Missouri hit the explanation. I've lived in Springfield for 30 years, still no explanation. And, to my own credit, I guess, I didn't run and I didn't clear leather. I wasn't prepared to be shooting something, but I wasn't getting answers as quickly as I would have liked. And, a couple of weeks past now, I still have the answers. Don't have the answers I want. I'm still short answers. So.
Well, I think for you, I would think, you tell me. So from your perspective with the medical background, when you're talking medical, there's always an answer, right? Eventually you find the answer, you get the answer. And when you come across something that you go, I do not have the answer, it doesn't sit well. Did it leave you wanting more? Did it leave you wanting to go and find more?
Well, I wish that what we were hearing in the parabolic mic would have gotten close enough that I could have seen it. Now, if I could have just seen it, that would have been fine. You don't need to come any closer. But,
right.
Medically, I was figuring out whatever this was had hands. It had opposable thumbs. It's, it was at least as tall as I was or taller, and I'm 6 feet even. I'm putting this had to be at least 7-8 feet tall, because people tend to hang things at eye level. It was a foot and a half above my eye level when standing at the base of the tree. So I figure, okay, 7.5, 8 feet tall. It's 7.5, 8 feet tall. It's intelligent. It's at least omnivorous, probably carnivorous, and it has hands. I ran out of options real damn fast. And, at that point I was like, okay, let's click over to the, crypto natural world. It was a Bigfoot or a dogman. The fact that we weren't being preyed upon and we didn't get aggressive behavior from it makes me think it doesn't fit into the dogman category, just from what I've heard of dogmen. So my mind's going to something similar to a Sasquatch, some kind of humanoid thing. And it was very curious. It had, something close to human intelligence, because it was reasoning, and it was trying to figure out more about us. And as it started doing the numbers game, it started getting more curious. When there were 7 of us on the peninsula, it stayed a certain range away. When me and the lieutenant left, 5 left, it got a little more curious. When it got down to just, DA, Robbie, and Noah, it got even more curious. and had
They
anybody
like
been
the
dumb enough
numbers
to Iron
better,
Man
right?
it would have been really, really curious. We weren't
Mhm.
openly armed. It wasn't like we were carrying, shiny boomsticks, as Robbie
Right.
puts it, but it could probably deduce that we were armed. It was interesting. And like I said, I would have liked to have been just close enough so I could have at least put something with a mental picture. But I wouldn't want it too awful close because, like I said, by the time it felt like they were getting closer, and I was noticing that I was, in quite a bit of pain and having trouble keeping up, then I
Yeah.
started getting a little scared. Because again, that went back to the nature films, and I'm thinking, okay, if it does eat humans, I'm probably a pretty good prey object at this point,
Mhm.
because I have real fear
Do
and I'm
you
disabled.
think do you think though that there was some element that knew that that whatever this was, that it knew that you were injured?
I think it could perceive a change in my gait and probably thought, if nothing else, I was less threatening and it could be more curious.
Okay.
I really, now that I've had a chance to think about it, I don't feel like I was being hunted, but I think I felt that it felt more comfortable getting closer to me,
Mhm.
thinking I was less of a threat to it.
And once
Okay.
Steve was displaying, that he was having trouble walking, we just very subconsciously moved him to the middle of the group.
It was hot as hell. I'm a decent
Yeah, it was
sized
about
guy who's a little
11,000
out of shape.
degrees out there that night.
Oh yeah, it was just as hot as Satan's nutsack. We're drenched in sweat. I'm sure it's picking up some
Uh-huh.
fear pheromones for me because once I'm realizing that it's on both sides of us and I'm hurt, it's at least crossing my path that I'm going to be some, as a diabetic, being some very sweet meat for Bigfoot. Uh, you know, if it wanted to be predatory, it had an opportunity with me. But I think now that I've had a chance to calm down and think about it, I think it thought it could more safely approach me because I looked like less of a threat.
Right.
I was running around with a bunch of military guys and ex-cops. I was probably the least alpha male looking of the bunch, And truthfully, the only reason I was probably even there was the fact that they needed a medic and their better one wasn't available.
We'd have took you anyway,
Oh,
Steve. You
stop
know
it.
that.
But realistically, if I were to size it up as like a predatory human being, if I was trying to
Mhm.
take somebody out, I would have gone after me because I was limping and I looked less threatening than the others. That's
Tanya Morgan wanted to
that's
know: do you think they understand that you're armed? I think they do. One, I'm sure they can smell the gun oil, but they've been in the woods longer than we have, and I'm pretty sure they've seen us not only hunting deer, but occasions where people have taken shots at them as well. I think they fully understand what a firearm is. They may not be able to use one, but they're definitely smart enough to know that it represents danger.
Well, and there's been, I don't know if it's ever been actually scientifically proven or not, but there's been many hunters who said that animals they hunt have recognized firearms when they've been pulled and pointed at them.
Mhm.
Like I said, I don't know if there's actually been any kind of scientific data to back that up, but I know I've heard plenty of hunters say that deer hunting, deer can recognize what a rifle looks turning towards them. Now, it may just be the movement. I don't know, but I think, like DA said, smelling the gun oil and
And I think a lot of it has to do with intent. If you've got a firearm,
Yes, I was
you
just
know
gonna say
what you're
that.
capable of that. And I think that what you're capable of with one, especially if you're bringing one
Yeah.
up with the intent to shoot something, I think they're gonna not only see that in your body posture,
For
but they're
sure.
gonna sense that about you too. I mean,
yeah,
you
it'd be a
go
huge
try
change in body language.
right, like try raising your camera to take a picture of a deer in the park. Deer will go, oh shit, and they're gone. I mean, deer has an oh crap moment and they're out of there and it was just a camera. They know you're focused on them and animals can sense stuff like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Heck, we can. Have you ever been sitting in a crowded room and realized somebody was staring at you?
Yes.
And you turn around and look at them like, what?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing. I mean, and if we can do it, go back to this again. If we can do it, or be taught to do it, or we've got that small sense in the back of our head, animals are. It's like when I was a canine handler and I went through my training. Canines, dogs have 70,000 times more sensitive a nose than we do. Wrap your head around that number, 70,000 times. If you take all the scent glands and organs inside their nose and take them out and stretch them out, it's over 7 miles of olfactory related organs. It's like the way Charlie explained it is like when you go into a house when somebody's cooking, like, you know, Marty, when you were cooking that food for us in Gatlinburg.
So good, by the way. Oh.
Yes, it was, which is why I used that as an example. But when you smelled that, you smelled everything together. It was just like that one aroma.
Mm-hmm.
A dog smells the pepper,
each individual
the salt,
thing, right?
It smells everything individually. So if a canine can do that, why is it so hard to believe here again that other animals don't? And I would just, I would assume that a wolf would be even more sensitive than a regular dog. So
look at a regular dog. You can jerk your arm back, and the look on the dog's face is, he's got a rock. You know, they know that motion. They know you're getting ready to throw something. You know, dogs will run.
Yeah. You raise your hand to a dog, what does it do?
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm about to get hit.
So,
you know, it's like when my mom walks behind me at her house, you know, I instinctively go like this because I'm fitting to get hit in the back of the head because that's growing up. That's my wife calls it the orphan home dodge.
Or if you mentioned nuns, you see every Catholic in the room start rubbing the back of their hand.
Right,
Seriously.
right.
Yeah,
seriously, I do that when people mention their typing speed, because I was taught by an old business school instructor, and if she caught our hands bouncing on the keys, she'd swat them with a yardstick. You know, our fingers moved, but the hands couldn't. And so people talk about how fast they type, and I'll catch myself doing one of these things because I remember getting wrapped. You know, I type over 80 words a minute, and my hands don't move. But that came down the hard way.
And you know, obviously, I think we've talked about the uncanny valley many times on the show. Genetic memory, I think, is really a thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
I think
that things that have happened to us in the past, and when I say us, I don't mean specifically happened to me, but that is just ingrained and passed on. So if it can happen to us, there again, you know, I know I sound like a dang broken record, but you only have to look in nature and what we've studied and what has been proven in nature to answer a lot of these questions. Now, can you validate that and say that's 100%? No, you can't. I understand that. But there again, like I've said before, it's just, it's what the evidence leads me to. Now, DA and Steve and I and Marty, we all, and I think Mariana, you've proved tonight you kind of fall in the same category as we do. If it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck.
Yeah. So
if that's where the evidence leads you, then that's just where you have to go. If the evidence leads you to they go through portals, fine. I mean, I don't begrudge anybody their opinion. I don't care if anybody believes what I believe or not. It doesn't.
I mean, listen, I've seen some crazy pictures. I've seen some crazy photos. People haven't released. I have seen them. And this was before AI was a thing. Okay, guys? I'm just letting y'all know that these are not AI photos. I can tell you that the photos that I have seen absolutely 100% look like a portal to me, like a portal opening up. Like it's crazy. Like I have seen some wild photos. Have I personally seen a portal? I have not personally seen a portal, but have I seen crazy photos that people have never released? Yes, I've seen crazy photos of crazy things.
Well, to touch on Robbie's genetic memory thing, just let's assume that Bigfoot exists and that it is a relic hominid, which is kind of the majority opinion that we have here on our show. Okay, the Neanderthals, the closest relatives to us, branched off from somewhere between 300 and 500,000 years ago. Okay, assuming their generations are the same as ours, and there's roughly 4 of them in a century. So there's been 1.2 million generations, conservatively, that these things have had to pass down this information about, you know, naked human bad. You know, naked human, not us. You know, there's going to be an ingrained uncanny valley for them. And, you know, they haven't spent the last, 40,000 years living in civilizations. You know, they've been in a tribe out in the woods. So their ability to perceive things about us is going to be so much better than ours.
Yep.
You know,
And,
yes,
they
I'm
never relied on
but,
technology. They never relied on
Right.
living in a shelter that protected them from the elements 24/7. They've had to remain closer to nature and stay adapted to that environment. Whereas we've lost a lot of that primitive part of our brain, that primitive instinct that some folks call it a sixth sense. But we've lost that attuned nature where we would be able to be far more perceptive in the woods than we ever are now.
And I think it's really, honestly, like they suffer from the uncanny valley too.
Well, and the start of human civilization, for some anthropologists, is when we learned to create fire. Okay, people on the show currently notwithstanding, how many everyday humans can make fire by themselves without having a cigarette lighter or
it's a dying skill.
Modern tech?
No,
I can.
But it's not can't. Easy. Not without having something like, I mean, I need to have assistance. And I don't mean I don't mean another person, but I mean
matches, lighters.
Yeah, matches, lighters. I've done it with a bow drill. I have a whole thing.
Yeah.
Huh?
Well,
I've done it with a bow drill where you make a primitive bow and a little drill.
Do I look like I've got you? Do I look like I'm going to be bow drilling it?
It is work. It is not easy to do.
Well, like we said, DA, how many people know how to read a lensatic compass?
Right.
How many people?
That's a dying art.
How many people get out in the woods and rely on this to get them out of the woods?
And technology will fail you at the worst possible time.
Yeah. Oh, we proved that the other night. We were not in the middle of nowhere. We were in Joe Ball, which is like not the middle. I mean, granted, it's a remote shut down campsite, but it's not out in the middle of
just a
nowhere.
few miles from Kimberling City, Missouri. I mean,
and we proved
you guys are not out in
60 miles.
We proved that technology will fail you. Johnny and I proved that technology will fail you in LBL. So how many people
Cindy? Yes, I am.
How many people know how to read a lensatic compass? That's something that can save your life. Dead reckoning. Because if you're in a place where there's a high magnetic value in the land, your compass may fail you.
Yeah.
If you don't know how to read a topo map and can look and dead reckon between, two features of land, okay, I'm in a saddle that's going to lead me to a creek. Stuff like it's like
there's a lot about survival that
and these are things
we
forgotten
just don't know how to do anymore. We just don't.
Things we've forgotten that are absolutely 100% a part of the natural world for a Bigfoot.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I mean, listen, Mary Ann can tell you, I don't go nowhere without my makeup.
How many times have we talked
Robbie
about
knows that
right
too.
Today?
Robbie knows that too. Listen, I don't even care if I'm out in the woods. I'm still doing makeup. I still got to do my makeup. So
me too. I mean,
if you want to learn how to do stuff like that, get this book right here. DA and I both have this book. This book right here can save your life.
Which book is that? I can't read it.
It's called The Lost Ways.
The Lost Ways.
Yeah.
Is it like a survival textbook?
It's a book that's full of things that the pioneers used, that things we take completely for granted now that have been replaced with technology, but how to make primitive medicines, how to make shelters, what plants are edible.
I got to put that on my Amazon wish list.
Heck yeah.
That's what I'm doing right now.
That book
Are you really?
Save your life.
Seriously. I mean, like there are things. I mean, don't think that I don't want to make I mean, yes, I'm very girly. I'm very, very girly. but I'm also not a quitter, and I always think and try to plan ahead as much as possible. If I don't have fire, how am I going to make fire by myself? If it's just me, like, sounds weird, but I mean, I have tons of, like, I save my lint from my dryer, and I mix Vaseline, right? Petroleum jelly in with that. I have it, and I keep it in a Ziploc bag, in another Ziploc bag, in a bottle. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there are things that I do for when I go out that are in my backpack that keep me alive. And they don't always have to cost you lots of money to do either. So, I mean, there's a lot of things around your house that you can take with you that can help save your life too, and make yourself, not so afraid. Because I think that for me, early on, when I started getting into these kinds of things and going out, I was very, very unsure of myself, because when I was a little girl, I mean, we ran the woods, we ran the streets. We were, from, sun up to sundown, I mean, that's what we did. But I've been in the city for, how many, 30 years, 35 years now. So it's like, well, I had to kind of like get comfortable with being out there, comfortable with hearing the sounds of what certain animals sound like at night. And, I mean, when we go out into the Everglades, I mean, you hear strange growling, you hear a lot of strange noises. A lot of them are gators. I'm just saying, like, you have to kind of get yourself used to those things and expose yourself to these things. And then you gain that confidence, to kind of be out there. But you have to plan ahead. It's all about preparation and planning.
And we've said it many times on here. In order for you to be able to identify the sounds that aren't supposed to be there, you've got to know the ones that are supposed to be there.
Yes.
There are lots of resources you can find on YouTube or online where you can hear calls of like foxes and calls of bears and things like that. It's good to know the animals that are in your area and familiarize yourself with the noise that they make, because, like I've said on this before, I've gone camping with guys up in Colorado who woke me up from a dead sleep. They're like, "Hey, we just heard a Bigfoot. You got to get out of here." And it was an elk bugling. I'm like, "Tell me you morons have never heard an elk bugle before." They're like, "Is that what that is?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's just a freaking elk, man."
I mean, I think I posted on my channel, and I found it. I can't remember if I found it on TikTok or I don't know what it was. It was one of the social medias. It might have been Instagram. But I mean, somebody had posted that something that I guess one of the like FWC trail cams caught a male Florida panther like bellowing for a female. And if you were to hear that, you'd be like, oh, like, I mean, you really would freak out, because
fox and bobcats the same way. If you don't know what it is, they can scare the crap out of you.
Oh, bobcat will.
Mm-hmm.
You hear a bobcat scream in the middle of the woods at night.
That's crazy.
It's
crazy.
creepy.
Yeah, that's that. Oh Lord, shoot this thing!
Shoot this thing!
Yeah. That's
Marty.
Grab your makeup and your gun. Run for the hills.
But, like we said, we want people to go out. We want people to have their experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And as a matter of fact, Spencer and DA and I have talked about this, about doing a show
just on safety,
specifically on safety, going out into places like this. And I don't know if that's a show that people would like to see, but I think Spencer's on to something. There's just a lot of people that, Jessica and I talked about this other night when I was on her show. We kind of deviated off of what our subject was and started talking about it a little bit. There's so many people that see shows like ours or see shows like Finding Bigfoot or stuff like that, and like, I'm going to go do that. And they get in the car and they drive out to places like this with no preparation. Don't let nobody know where they're at.
Yeah.
And just walk off in the woods. And it's great that people want to get out and and
Oh
experience
yeah,
stuff.
I strongly encourage people to spend time in the woods.
But you know, Bigfoot and dogman aside, there's so much other stuff out there that can still hurt you. Whether or not you run across one of these cryptids or not, you still got a chance to run across a snake, a bear, a cougar. How long ago was
North American meth head?
Yeah, that one too.
Yeah, I mean, you could roll an ankle and you're screwed.
There was a lady in I believe it was in Yellowstone a few years ago that rolled her ankle, and her husband said, "I'll hike back where I got some cell signal and get somebody in here." She goes, "I'll just wait here." By the time he made it back within a couple hours, she'd already been killed and eaten by wolves.
Yeah.
Or like me, you could be with a group of well-trained people and break your leg getting off a boat.
Yep. That can happen too.
Steve's the reason we've got the set on the edge of the boat and swing your legs rule in place.
Yeah. Now,
Steve, you created new protocols.
The deck of this damn boat was 30 inches off of the ground. It wasn't like I was jumping 8 feet.
It wasn't a huge jump.
No. But I landed just wrong on uneven terrain with a 40-pound backpack on. You know, that's all it took.
That's all. Hey, it's all fun and games until somebody breaks a hip, man.
Hey, I can tell you, that's one of what we used to tell rookie officers all the time. Don't be so damned eager to go hands-on because, you know, people get hurt.
Yes.
And sometimes it's in the freakishly easiest way possible, and it ain't always who you think is going to get hurt.
Mm-hmm.
It could be the most physically fit guy in the group, and he takes a wrong step, and he's out of action.
Well, we were talking the other night. You know, I'm a decent-sized guy. You know, 222, 6 feet tall. I'm taking classes in nursing on how to protect myself if I get attacked by a patient who's not mentally there. In 10 years of nursing, the only time I've ever been hurt was by a 12-year-old autistic kid, and he went through me like goose shit. You know, he cracked 2 of my ribs. He slammed a bed into me. I mean, he was what I would least expect. And because of his mental challenges, he didn't know his own strength and didn't have the self-control that, one of the rest of us would. You know, if I was trying to throw Robbie around, at some point I would think, okay, I'm going to dislocate my shoulder, my elbow if I do such and such. This is going to hurt me if I do such and such.
Right.
They don't have that connection. And something like, Bigfoot or something would have a similar type of, they would use every bit of their strength.
Mm-hmm.
Animals don't react.
You could get hurt.
Yep. It can be dangerous, which again, back to preparation and planning.
Absolutely. And there's so many things you can do that can help you get in and out safely.
Mm-hmm.
Take a basic first aid class, or if there's a dark angel class in your area, take a dark angel class because that's a full-on trauma class.
He never comes to Florida, does he?
He does, but it's rare. We'll get after him.
Yeah.
But I know y'all noticed we kind of skipped our affiliate announcements tonight.
Oh,
we'll get back to that. Since we had guests on tonight, I wanted to make sure we were talking with them. We'll get back to the affiliates at another point. But we are coming up on the top of the 2-hour mark.
Yep.
Marianne, you want to tell us more about the conference again? Tell us about the conference again. Noah, will you post the links again? Make sure you're posting the links for Nonna's channel as well, and for Marty's channel, so we can send some subs her way. And let's talk about the conference a little bit more.
The conference is going to be held on September the 28th. It's a Saturday. It's in Springfield, Missouri at the Relics Event Center, and you can go to eventbrite.com to get your tickets. We're only selling tickets online. I don't know if there's going to be any available at the door, because if they sell out, there will not be any available at the door. That's just, the Eventbrite is just for the one day of the conference. We also have a campout that is going to be immediately after the conference, and it runs through Saturday through Wednesday morning. And if you're interested in that, you can get a hold of me at Ozarks Mountain Bigfoot Conference on Facebook. Just give me a private message and I'll give you all the details on that. But that is where you get to camp out with all of us. We provide 2 meals a day for you, and it is primitive camping. We've got running water, usually have porta potties. We got no electric. You're on your own on that one. The speakers will be out there. It's basically an event that's on property that has had past Bigfoot activity and continues to have Bigfoot activity. And there's a neighbor out there that's got about 1,000 acres also. And we're hoping to get on his property this year. All of them have stuff that go on. They just don't talk about it. It's just kind of an unspoken thing there of, yep, they're here. This is the strange thing that's happened now. So yeah, and that's a limited, we only take about 30 people out there. So if that's something you guys think you're interested in, I'd be reaching out pretty soon.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And the link is right here in the chat.
And the list of speakers really quickly again. We've got Brian King Sharp. We've got Robert Kreider, Jason Kenzie, Shane Carpenter, Richard Taylor, and Wayne C. Tothrow. So get your tickets,
Pretty big
guys.
lineup. It's going to be awesome.
Yes.
Yep, I'm pretty proud of that lineup this year. That took some work.
And it's a much bigger venue.
Yes.
In October 10th and 11th, DA?
I think that's the dates.
October 10th and 11th, DA and I are going to be at in Greenville, Ohio at the Bigfoot Spirit of the Woods Festival. DA is going to be speaking. I'm going to be teaching a tracking class. I think DA is going to help me out a little bit with that class, or DA's going to, not Steve, but DA.
We may be doing an evidence
One of them
class as well.
So Robbie, how often do you come to Missouri?
As often as I can.
Well, I'm always looking for trackers because I'm also doing the BFRO expeditions here in Missouri. And as of next year, I'm going to be doing the BFRO expeditions in Arkansas and the BFRO expeditions in Oklahoma. So I may be hollering at you.
Hey, I'll DA and Steve both, and Marty will tell you, I love that because the times that I get to use it in law enforcement kind of sometimes are few and far between, and it's a perishable skill. If you don't get out there and practice it, you can lose it. And I love to get out and myself and teach and
maybe Robbie needs to be on the lineup next year.
Well, that might be a thing to consider too.
Hey, I done found out that I can count as my training classes or training hours for the year, so I'm down.
All right.
There you go.
Well, if we could somehow manage to swing a way to transfer his retirement here to Missouri, we might convince him to move out here. But
right.
For some reason, the bastard finds money more important than we are. I don't know what to tell you.
Steve, look, you're a nurse. You gonna pay my house? You pay my house off? I'll come out there. That there you go.
I just want to thank all the amazing people in chat tonight. Thank you guys. Thanks for all those amazing super chats and your comments. And thank you for the love, the positivity. Don't forget to spread love and kindness wherever you go. All right, guys.
Absolutely.
And thank you guys for having us ladies on.
Thank you.
I'm just holding out for DA to get that Netflix deal so I can be his private duty nurse and bartender.
There you go.
Folks, we are coming up to the end of the show. I want to remind everybody tomorrow at 1:30 p.m. Robbie and I will both be on the Woodwalkers show. We're going to be on there with Tim Coonbo Baker. It's going to be an awesome time. We're going to be talking Dogman and Bigfoot and everything under the sun. So make sure you check them out. If you haven't checked out Woodwalkers, check them out. Noah will be posting the link in the chat. They are at 1.99K. Let's get them to the 2,000 subs. When they hit 2,000, they're going to do a giveaway, and I'm going to throw some books in and some patches, and we're all going to help push them. And while you're at it, go ahead over to Marti's channel, the NonnaBoss, and make sure you like and subscribe to her channel as well. And
I'm getting there. I'm almost to 1,000. I'm getting there.
Let's show these folks.
I'm already a member of that one.
Let's show these folks some love and help get their channels out there even further. But we are at the end of the show. And a time of the night when we talk about the 22 a Day Foundation. We lose 22 veterans a day to suicide, and that is 22 too many. This is a subject that's very near and dear to my heart, not just because I've worn a uniform for most of my adult life, but because I've buried way too many friends under flags. We lose first responders and veterans at an alarming rate. You look at Officer Down Memorial page, the odmp.com. Look at Till Valhalla Project and look at some of the things that's going on. We lose veterans and first responders at just a terrifying rate. So check them out. Remember the 22 a day foundation. Remember, we lose 22 veterans a day. Mark your calendar on the 22nd of every month. Make the 22nd the day you reach out to all of your veteran and first responder friends so we can get 22 a day down to 0. Because you never know when that one text you send them, hey, are you okay? It might be the one thing that pulls them back off the edge that day. Because, it's something that I feel very strongly about and something I always will. So reach out to your veteran friends, reach out to your first responder friends, let them know you're thinking about them, let them know you care. And
don't assume that because they look okay that they're okay.
Exactly.
You know, Chester Bennington, you know, granted he wasn't a veteran, but, you know, the former lead singer of Linkin Park, there was a video recorded of him an hour before he hung himself, and he was the happiest he could ever look.
Sometimes
and then he hung himself less than an hour later.
They're perfectly fine are the ones you need to check on the most. And like I've said before, I'd rather hear your story than read your obituary. If you got nobody else to reach out, like contact information is all over this channel. You're at DA Roberts at daroberts.net. Reach out to me. I'd be happy to chat with you. But you've got to remember, these folks see some horrible things, and what they go through to keep us free and to keep us safe is unimaginable if you've never worn a uniform. Pulling mangled bodies out of vehicles, combat like you would never believe. I mean, it takes a toll on a human brain, and PTSD is something that is hard to live with. And I speak from experience. Sometimes it's a rough journey, but thankfully I've got guys like these a-holes over this direction that, if I'm having a bad day, I've always got somebody I can reach out to. I can text any one of these guys at 2:00 in the morning, like, "Hey, you awake, fucker?" And they will respond. I think I've woke every one of them up at one point or another.
My phone's always on, man.
And just reach out to your veteran friends, your first responder friends.
Hey, you see what Noah said?
No, what Noah said? Woodwalkers hit 2K. Hell yeah!
Yeah, congratulations, Woodwalkers.
Congratulations, guys.
Misty just confirmed it.
Greg, reach out to
awesome.
me. I'm going to give you guys a couple of autographed books and some patches to give away for your 2000. And Robbie's got some stuff for you too. And I'm sure we'll talk about it more tomorrow when we're on your show. But we're definitely proud of you guys. Congratulations on the 2K. Mm-hmm. We knew you guys would get there. So now huge. It's on to 5K, boys and ladies.
Good job, guys.
That's so cool.
That is absolutely awesome. I'm thrilled to death they did it while we were still alive. But as we're reaching the end of the show, we've been closing out the show with a toast, and it's something I'm kind of proud of. As I'm pretty happy that we've started doing it. It's something I'm going to continue to do. I don't care if you're drinking water, something stronger. It doesn't matter what you're drinking, as long as you join us. There's an old Irish drinking song called "The Parting Glass," and it's played at the end of the night in Irish pubs all over the world. But when you listen to the lyrics, it's not just talking about going home for the night or seeing them tomorrow in the pub. It's about lifting a glass for those that we've lost along the way. It's about saying goodbye and lifting that glass for those that are no longer with us. And it's a beautiful tune, and you should check it out. You definitely should listen to it. But the toast says, "But since it fell into my lot that I should rise and you should not, I'll gently rise and softly call. Good night, and joy be to you all." Good night, everyone.
Good night, everybody.
Cheers, guys.
Thank you for joining us. Catch us again Wednesdays and Saturdays on Ex Machina. A special thanks to all our channel members and Patreon supporters. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe.